Bridges, Aldcombe, Haywards Heath, Wivelsfield, Burgess Hill, Essex, Preston Park, and Brighton.
For joining me today as we embark on our journey into the world of cultural heritage preservation. The focus of the subject today is very significant, in my opinion, the preservation of African American and African cultural heritage. But before we dive deep into the details of the research that I've been working on, I want to take a moment to emphasize the importance of preserving African and African American heritage and culture, and the rich history and the diverse traditions that are included within that, which includes various societies and ethnicities across the globe. So there are oftentimes misunderstandings of what African or African American heritage is, and that is the reason for the importance and the significance of learning about our history, learning about our culture, preserving that information and that legacy and continuing it. This heritage is not only about the past, but it's about the present and the future. It's about our stories, our struggles, our triumphs that continue to inspire and inform us every day. Preserving this heritage is an act of honoring those who came before us and ensuring that their voices and contributions are heard and appreciated for generations to come. In my pursuit of this mission, this research has taken me on a remarkable journey, and I'm excited to share the progress and the insights that I've learned along the way with you. So again, welcome. My name is Aisha Abdul Rahman, and I am an MLIS graduate at San Jose State University iSchool. I am specializing my degree in digital archives and records management. Specifically, I'm interested in heritage preservation and archival records. I have a profound interest in virtual reality and augmented reality and its ability to increase engagement and access of our heritage artifacts and archival records. I regularly travel to West Africa a few times throughout the year to research and learn about various cultures and languages and histories like that of the Ewe people in Ghana or the Mende and Temne people in Sierra Leone, which I personally have a direct ancestral connection to. In this research, I've discovered and experienced that the culture firsthand. I've learned about its use of technology as well as its lack of technology and information access, as well as those of us here in the US. So my goal is to develop a technological bridge that facilitates our reconnection to one another through information and technology. So the research objectives of this project was guided by my commitment to preserve and present African and African American culture and heritage through exploration, through interviews, through just research and engaging in finding out not only my ideas and my vision, but also what was already being done, what was already being said, what was already being written by those that came before me. I wanted to research the technological feasibility of including VR and augmented reality within our heritage and preservation. The goal is to enhance our accessibility to such information and to present my analysis and the potential that it has for storytelling. I'm also going to present the challenges and the strategies that I use and the implementations of that research. So again, this research includes interviews with museum professionals, practitioners, technological experts, so others using VR, others that are interested in VR, my peers, my students, my professors. So the methodology of this research has been simultaneously looking at the past, the present, and the possibilities of the future. It included digitizing artifacts from the Sojourner Truth African Heritage Museum in Sacramento, California. It included meticulously capturing high quality images, measuring them, and making sure that they were well documented to provide efforts for continuing research and learning about the artifacts that are within the museum itself. There was a lot of effort in the research and collection development, creating policies, creating procedures, and also I'm going to talk a little bit about training opportunities and facilitating who is going to come next after me and continue the legacy of preserving this project and continuing to learn and learn from its potential. These immersive experiences will allow us to tell engaging stories about our heritage, whether it's shedding light on banned books and controversial topics, or showcasing the rich history of the Sojourner Truth artifacts. So throughout the documenting and reporting, when I first began my work with Sojourner Truth during my fellowship, I initially began with an initial needs assessment, looking at what the museum already had in place, which policies and procedures that were already in place, from the security that it had to an emergency preparedness plan. Then I continued creating a digitization and cataloging manual, which provided step-by-step instructions and guidance on standards of operation, traditional standards, as well as to serve as a training manual for the docents and volunteers at the Sojourner Truth Museum. Along with that, I created a long-term preservation plan, which provides recommendations of preserving the artifacts and the records that Sojourner Truth has. Following by a digitization strategic plan, which I began implementing as a fellow for Sojourner Truth, which included digitizing several of the masks, some artifacts that are made of wood as well as leather, creating a collection policy that basically focuses on the mission of Sojourner Truth and creates a policy as to what type of collections it will be welcoming, accepting as donations, and which are kind of outside of the scope of the goals and the missions of the museum. Lastly, I created an emergency response plan. There was currently not an emergency response plan, which I realized through my research that a lot of museums and libraries do not have not only an emergency disaster plan, but also a response plan. So if there was an earthquake, if there was flooding, if there's fire, what policies and procedures are in place to rescue the items and to preserve them and to take care of them in the best possible possibility possible to conserve them and to prevent any further damage. And finally, a cataloging menu that serves as a guide for the docents and the volunteers in terms of digitizing and cataloging, or rather continuing to digitize and catalog the work that I have begun. So these serve as essential guides, policies, and records of my efforts, and I hope that they will contribute to the museum's mission and future endeavors. These were also the beginning initial steps for exploring the potential of browser-based VR and augmented reality for cultural heritage preservation that I'm so interested in, and I believe will help to redefine accessibility and engagement and cultural appreciation. By uncovering these opportunities and challenges within VR, the research that I have done strives to pave the way for more inclusive and immersive experience of African and African American heritage. So there are some misconceptions about digitization and preservation. Digitization is not preservation. If we have things in a digital format, does not make them forever. Formats change, formats are not always inclusive, there are upgrades, systems go away, and things change. So digitization is a good first step, but it is not preservation within itself. So the digitization process captures the essence of the artifacts, paving the way for what to do with them next, to use them in instances such as digital archives and preservation, as well as now virtual and augmented reality platforms. One of the foundational steps in the mission to preserve and present African and African American culture and heritage is the digitization process. This process serves as a gateway to make sure that these artifacts are accessible and engaging to a broader audience. By digitizing them, we can then bring them into virtual worlds or websites and include that people around the world will have access to them. So to begin, I carefully photograph each artifact from various angles. I took photos from the right, the left, the front, the back, and even sometimes the top and bottom if there were significant details that I wanted to note. I also meticulously used a mobile app on my phone to measure each artifact, so its height and its width, or sometimes the circumference. This information will provide information in terms of its value and authenticity, its condition, as well as for possible storage or exhibition in the future. Not only, I didn't stop there with measuring everything, so I took detailed notes about the artifact, its unique characteristics, and the provenance, such as who it was donated by or the artist that created the artifact itself. The intent behind this process was to bring these artifacts to life and to provide access to a broader audience with digital platforms, such as the Omeka archival exhibition online that I've developed, VR and augmented reality platforms. So through digitization, I was able to lay a foundation for greater accessibility and engagement and educational opportunities. It did not stop there. So once I had the photos in my camera, everything was digitized, I then went through and did what's called accessioning, assigning a cataloging number and doing some research about the history of the objects, where they originated from, what their uses were. For example, with the masks, what type of masks were they? What countries did they come from? How were they used? Were they used for weddings? Were they done for initiation rites? Were they used for funerals? So I've begun doing research and including that information in our cataloging and inventory database. Beyond digitizing, this journey includes those records, and this phase is the transformation phase. So we'll have the measurements, all of the information about the artifacts, as well as its cultural history, so that we can then make that information more publicly accessible and searchable and ready for engagement online. So the next step was archival preservation using the Omeka platform. So the Omeka platform is run on Dublin Core. It plays a vital role in the journey of archival preservation and public engagement because the inventory and the cataloging is more so used for internal usage and documenting, where the Omeka platform is a public-facing platform, which will increase our engagement and accessibility of the artifacts. So if you are not if you're not located in the Sacramento, California area, you will still have access to the artifacts that are housed within the Sojourner Truth African Heritage Museum. You will have significantly more information about the details of the objects and its history that you can then research. So this can be for students of elementary, junior high, high school, college students, researchers like myself. So this type of process of collection management is crucial in terms of organizing artifacts, their research, and the data that comes along with them in terms of a process of archival preservation. So preservation is not something that is one and done. It is a long-term process that grows and evolves over time. And the purpose of it is to provide access and engagement. So we don't want to hold on to things, just have pictures and then kind of have them stored away in storage. But the purpose is to then share them and include its history, its context, and its significance with the public to increase their knowledge and information of those objects. So the next step of this process has been in training and collaboration and preparing future generations to, one, inspire them, to motivate them, and to educate them on the possibilities of their own potential careers in libraries and archives. So I was able to collaborate with user experience designers and developers, those who were also in my peers. They were library and archive students as well. Some of them were solely focused on archives, some of them were solely focused on cultural records, and some of them were solely focused on VR. So I was able to collaborate with people from various disciplinary areas of study and research at the San Jose State University iSchool. There have also been partnerships that have been established. San Jose State University has a lab, it's called the LibTech Lab, that provides kind of a reference research in terms of technology. So there's 360 cameras, there's robots, there's holograms, there's there's drones, there's VR, there's AR. So by presenting the project that I've been working with the Sojourner Truth Fellowship to the faculty there, I was able to kind of develop a partnership where they allowed me to use the space and also share what I'm learning with others that are interested in such technology as well. And then finally, as I mentioned, the training of the docents that are working at the Sojourner Truth Library, training them on the process of digitizing, on cataloging, on creating these sessions, so that they can then volunteer and help in that process, but also gain the knowledge and skills that they may need to empower them to actively engage in the preservation process. So in addition to that training, it included videos, creating video tutorials that are now located in an online archive that the docents have access to. So there's training videos as well as training materials, kind of SOPs, if you will, on the entire step-by-step process. So now that everything is digitized, I'm going to talk a little bit about the VR process and how this all comes together. So throughout history, I guess you can say, VR has been something that's kind of for the nerdy people or for gamers. It's seen as a game. It's seen as something that you have to have an expensive headset or a very fast, robust computer. So my objective for this project, because the focus was on increasing accessibility and increasing engagement, was to learn about browser-based VR and its potential to transcend the traditional boundaries that VR has a reputation of. So the objective was to look at my experiences with those who use technology or have access to technology, as well as those who do not, both in West Africa and here in the US. So during my trips to Ghana or during my trips to Sierra Leone, many don't have laptops, they don't have desktop computers, but in even the most remote villages, pretty much everyone has a mobile phone. So that is why I really wanted to approach this heritage preservation project from a browser-based VR versus more robust VR. So through browser-based VR, you essentially have a metaverse in your hand. People can access virtual worlds through their cell phone. So through browser-based VR, it really increases the potential for not only access and accessibility, but also to increase the skills and introduce people from around the world to the possibilities of VR that they did not think were possible before. So with VR, we're not limited by our physical locations or costly equipment, because the browser-based VR democratizes access to cultural heritage and knowledge. So this is basically a photo of a prototype that I'm currently working on. Essentially, I wanted to showcase the ease and accessibility of creating a browser-based VR. So using my cell phone alone, I took panoramic photos inside the Sojourner Truth Library. I created a animated video of myself also using my cell phone, and I also created a 3D augmented reality prototype using my cell phone, uploading it into this browser-based VR. So here you can click a link. We will provide a link for it here in the presentation if you want to take a tour of the space. As I mentioned, it can be accessed from your cell phone, from your laptop, or even a tablet, which I will get into in the next slide. So I really wanted to showcase the potential that browser-based VR has and can give a really profound and immense VR experience without an expensive headset, as well as the fact that virtual worlds can be created from a simple device, something as simple as your phone. Using other equipment, 3D cameras, more extensive equipment, of course, will give you better quality, better results, more possibilities. But something very nice and quality can also be done from your phone. And that's what I wanted to kind of highlight and showcase here on this slide. And then this is a clip from a mobile, from a tablet, from my iPad. So again, stressing that virtual worlds that are browser-based increase accessibility. It can be from a phone, it can be from a laptop, a desktop, or even a tablet, which provides opportunities for students to increase their engagement. I myself being a visual learner, I found that learning information and gaining information in a visual and hands-on way helped me to not only comprehend, but to retain the information that I was receiving. So I believe that browser-based VR is an amazing way to teach students of all ages information and content in a new and innovative way that increases their interest in the topic that they're learning. It increases their interest in the technology that was used to create those educational opportunities. So imagine a classroom where students don't just read about African heritage, but they step into this vibrant history through immersive VR experiences. The Sojo digital and VR platforms will offer a pathway for project-based learning where students can become explorers or researchers or even storytellers themselves. As I mentioned, just using my cell phone, I was able to create this avatar. So you can have a student present in a virtual world. You can have a student create their own virtual world as a project-based assignment. I believe that these platforms ignite curiosity and knowledge, empowering students to delve deeper into the rich tapestry of African heritage, as well as technology. Browser-based and project-based learning becomes a journey of discovery where students not only absorb information, but they can actively contribute to the preservation of culture and heritage. They can engage in their own storytelling. They can take a personal ownership of their learning and their lifelong learning and be contributors to their own history, bridging the past, the present, and the future through virtual-based reality. And so this last slide is just a little bit about me, my contact information. There's a photo here of me in the virtual world of Second Life, as well as the real world, which is basically kind of a representation of just bringing the two together. So I would like to invite you to be a part of the mission to preserve and share African and African American culture and heritage. I believe that through the power of digitization, cataloging and collecting our personal histories as community, and embracing technology such as browser-based VR, we can increase our accessibility of our information, we can engage the youth as well as the elderly in the legacy of knowledge and preservations of our culture and our history. If you do happen to explore any of these virtual roles, please send me an email. Give me some feedback. Let me know what your insights are. These are prototypes. They are works in progress. VR is not a one and done thing. They are things that can be expanded and grow throughout time. Thanks so much for your time, guys.
Yeah, we want to thank Aisha for her presentation. She is the first, actually the second um, intern or archivist fellow that the museum has had. And just a little bit about Aisha. We published her in the Truth Chat newsletter and talking about how we were really pleased to have the archivist fellow position filled. And she had brings to Sojourner Truth an impressive background and a scholarly background. One that with her PhD, in archive and library sciences, she's brought a lot to the museum practice. And what we're doing is we're writing Aisha into our next grant with the African American museums in partnership with the city of Sacramento. So this is just a way of bringing a fellow in and creating a job position for the fellow. And, she brings a unique view into the museum and leveraging her digital background and how she uses virtual reality. And she's become a really an access to the museum. So I kind of just wanted to share that with you and the work that she's doing. I will be sending her next to one of the conferences and presenting her paper to the California Association of Museums, and then also wrote her in to present at the African American Association of Museum conference that will be held in Baltimore, Maryland in 2024. So we're really glad to have her on board with the Sojourner Truth Museum.